Today we're breaking down Kewan Lacy's game for the 2027 NFL Draft. And we're going to tell you why he's one of the best running backs in college football.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I'm Damian Parson. That's Keith Sanchez. And on today's episode, we're starting off with the running back position, talking about Kewan Lacy, explaining our grades for him, if there are any NFL comps for him right now. Talk about the concerns, things we want to see him clean up heading into the 2026 college football season. And as we always do, we kick the show off with the pros. And Keith, this was a very productive running back in the SEC last year for Ole Miss. Kewan Lacy, listed at 5'11", I believe, 210 pounds, I believe he's listed as. And this is a guy coming off a season where he carried the ball 306 times, ran for 1,567 yards, 24 total touchdowns, Keith. Kewan Lacy was kind of part of the engine. Or I'll say he's probably the engine of that offense at times last year for Ole Miss. What stood out to you on tape?
Yeah, one, I'm gonna say this, production, right? And not that didn't stand out on tape for me, but I think it's impressive, and you can't gloss over that. Like, he's been a really productive SEC running back, and like you said, he's been the engine of this offense, right? And they went through the transitions, and because even he was there with Jackson Dart, right? I believe he had 1 year last year, because it's his second year.
He was at Missouri. The year before. So it's crazy. Okay, crazy. Missouri. He transferred from Missouri, opened the door for Amari Hardy to go to Missouri, who's a direct competitor.
Yeah. Well, so last year, I'm sorry, with Trinidad Chambliss, he was the production part, right? As Jackson Dart left, and they was trying to figure out that quarterback position. He was the guy, right? He was the mainstay. He was the consistent part of that. So you can't gloss over that at all. So I wanted to open the show by giving him his props and just tell him great job. What it stands out on tape is, to me, it's acceleration parts, right? And when you create those gaps, and he has those gaps in that, whether that's the inside zone or maybe some outside flow type stuff, when he gets a crease, he knows how to hit the accelerator, right, to be able to pick up yards. And I think that's I don't want to say rare. It's not a rare trait, but I think it's a very high-end trait for him to have, to be able to find the creases in the defense and then pick up that extra yardage and press the accelerator, because sometimes you catch those second-level defenders, whether that's linebackers or safeties that's rolled down, DP, and you can kind of catch them off guard because they're expecting you to move at a certain tempo, right? Like, that's the tempo that you've been using. He clears the phrase of slow to quick through. Right. He runs with patience and visions, and then he's able to slash. And that's what I probably call him, a slasher. He's a slasher as a player, to be able to get into those gaps and then quickly pick up yards. That's the parts that I really appreciate with his game.
No, 100%, Keith. That was something I noticed immediately, was just that he's got the ability to decel very well and quickly. In the alley, this dude is quick. He's shifty. He's elusive. You're talking about safeties triggering from 15 yards and trying to run the alley. You better get there in time, because he has great second level vision. So with that shiftiness, with his quickness, short area quickness, and that second level vision, this is a dude that will 100% change directions and change levels on you. So you think, I'm running it. He's hitting the B gap. I'm going to run the alley, fill the B gap. Then he jump cuts outside, and you're in the B gap, and he's outside of you. Like, he's got really good footwork. And then he's patient, Keith. Like you said, that slow to quick through, got that patient running style. I don't want to give away my potential comp. I'm not gonna do it. But I think one way to describe him too, Keith, he's kind of smooth. He's kind of a smooth mover, in my opinion, where like it doesn't seem like it's taking him a lot to do these things. It's just like vision, processing, everything's moving at the same time. Plant, cut, get where I need to be. Right. And it's like, just like a basketball player, a ball handler, getting to your spot, right? Like, I'm trying to get to that mid-range. Paul Pierce and Kobe Bryant, they got to their mid-range. They knew how to get to the mid-range. He knows how to get to where he needs to be and set defenders up. And I love that again, that second level vision, watching him hit the second level, and like being able to improvise. I love watching running backs with that type of vision where it's like I get past the D line, I'm into the linebackers, and I'm not just running head on into a collision, right? Like that was something we talked about with like, Ashton Genty last year or the year, in coming out of last draft in 2025 last year was that, man, we want to see him not have so many head on car collisions. With Kewan Lacy, he doesn't have a ton of those. Like that's a guy that's going to absolutely evade you if he can. He's not trying to just run head on 15 times again. He's going to jump cut and sidestep you. I love the vision. I love the shiftiness and the looseness. This is a when you watch him, when you see the numbers, you're like, dang, 306 carries, 1,500 yards, 24 touchdowns, and you watch him like, oh, okay, I see why.
Yeah, DP, I'm gonna say this. You may be showing your age a little bit, DP, with the Paul Pierce mid-range reference.
Yeah,
Listen,
they don't shoot middies like that no more in the NBA.
The new school, they're gonna tell you, DP, that SGA is the mid-range king, right? They're gonna tell you that. But I get it. Listen, I'm gonna lean into the 2000s basketball.
Paul Pierce was a bad man. That's what I'm gonna tell y'all. He's a bad man. I just had to
bring that up. But listen, I want to honestly, another thing with Kewan Lacy, and we'll get into the next segment, but something that doesn't make sense for me. His stature, and then tying into, he's actually when you say, I don't say a power runner, but he runs with physicality.
He runs behind his pads.
Although his stature, and we discussed that in the concerns part, which I was impressed with, right? Like putting him in between the tackles, trying to have him churn out tough yardage. And I think that that's a very important part when you're talking about in the red zone, right? And the reason you have talking about having 24 total touchdowns, you don't get that without the coaching staff feeling confident that you can execute in short yardage, right? If they feel like they have to take you off the field, when you get to red zone, and fantasy players hate this part, right? The guy that gets them all the way down the field, and then they take out and put in a big power back. He stays on the field, DP, because, like you said, his ability to run behind his pads and how tough of a runner that he is, and maybe off initial look, you wouldn't think that that's part of his game, but it's definitely a part of his game that needs to be respected.
No, 100%. I think, like you said, that's where you see the 24 touchdowns. The combination of the vision, the footwork, and then I feel like he ran through some defenders because they weren't expecting him to run as hard as he did. They were expecting to try and evade. Like, no, he was like, no, I'll lower my shoulder and run straight. I'm trying to get this touchdown. We're at the 1 yard line. I'm trying to power this in. And also, Keith, I thought he's a three. I think this is a 3-down player too, because he caught the ball a decent amount last year, which we don't see. Like in the NFL, we see that a lot. Like, hey, running backs can catch the ball and be a first or second down runner, and now you give me some third down value where we can throw the ball to you. Like that's icing on top of the cake. That's what they love in the NFL. We look at Bijan and Jameer and Saquon, and heck, I don't think people realize. I think McCaffrey led the Niners in receiving yards last year, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like this, I think he's twice in his career he's gone for 1,000 in the season. When you have that type of playmaker, like not saying Kewan is of that ilk, but just having that ability, you know what I mean, to where we don't have to take you off the field. Long as you pass protect well enough, or you're functional in that, we're good. Because now I know if we bring you on, we keep you on third downs. If we see simulated pressure, we call max protect. You're sitting back there. You can keep our quarterback clean. If they're not sending pressure and they're just dropping back into coverage, we know we can deploy you as a receiver, and he gives you the best of both worlds as a really talented runner, but also as a functional, at worst, a functional receiver in the passing offense.
Yep, I agree. DP, let's do this, man. Let's talk about the concerns for Kewan Lacy, right? I'm going to tell you, stature is a little interesting, right? And I'm going to talk about how that may or may not translate to the NFL for me. We want to discuss Kewan Lacy, one of the most productive running backs in all of college football last season. Where does he stand in 2026 college football season and the 2027 NFL draft? We'll discuss Kewan Lacy concerns coming up next.
Workplace chaos can show up fast. That's where Indeed Sponsored Job comes in. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach candidates who actually fit what you're looking for based on experience, skills, and location. Finding the right person can make all the difference, whether it's building a business or you're building a winning team. One great addition can have a great ripple effect on everyone around them. When you find someone who brings in the right skills, attitude, and experience, it makes the entire group better. That's why finding qualified candidates matters so much. Why tools like Indeed Sponsored Jobs can help make that process that much easier. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? Well, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Get your daily Locked On NFL draft fix completely ad-free by joining the Everyday Club today. Start your 7-day free trial right now and get closer to me and Keith without the interruptions. Click the link in the show notes. Click the link in the show notes or go to lockedonnfldraft.supercast.com to claim your free trial. Keith, you already let the cat out the bag, man. You already let us know. It's the frame. It's the body type. It's the size. That's what stood out to you. And from a concern standpoint, heading into the NFL for Kewan Lacy. Listen, again, guys, 5'11", listed as 200 pounds. Keith, do you think he's probably closer to 190, 195 than 200?
Yeah, DPI. And listen, this whole entire thing was head scratching for me, right? And to our listeners that are listening, and I have my hand on my head, right? Because it's partially frustrating, right? Because what Kewan Lacy does and who he is from a stature standpoint goes against every scouting principle from a stature perspective that I have for a running back, right?
Yeah.
The sweet spot for me with running backs are 5'11", 215, right? Like that, and they got thick lower half, filled out frame, things like that, right? That's not Kewan Lacy. And then I can say, okay, cool. He's doing that in the Pac-10, Pac-12, right? Well,
yeah,
they're no longer, and he's doing it in the SEC, right? So I'm sitting there looking at it, DP, and I went through stats, right? Because I'm like, okay, this is a guy that, he's ripping off long runs, and then that's where he's getting most of his production from. Nope, DP, he's had 8 games, if I counted correctly, where he's had over 20 carries in those games, DP.
Yep.
For Florida, he tore Florida up for 31 carries, 225 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He had 24 carries against South Carolina for 167 yards. LSU, he put down 23 carries. Kentucky, he went 28 carries for 138 yards. So you can't use that part neither, right? And so I'm sitting back and I'm saying it is a concern for me. I have to still keep it as a concern. And it's his stature, because how does that hold up? But also, DP, when you have those running backs that I'm talking about, his not just his size, but his build, he's a higher hipped built running back also. To say that he's only 5'11" and he might be 5'10 and a half, he has long legs, right? And that's usually something else in running backs that I usually go against, right? I don't want high hip running backs, and the reason being is that sometimes impacts your lateral agility, right? To be able to pick them up, put them down quickly, moving laterally. And so Kewan Lacy, his build has been a head scratcher for me. I respect the production. I think he's super productive, and I appreciate the production. It's just that is going to be a concern for me, because even let's say if he being a high hip, because you got guys like maybe like a TJ Yeldon, right? They were taller, bigger backs. It's still, I believe TJ Yeldon was still like 6'6'1". Kewan is listed at what, 5'11". So what if he's 5'10 and a half, 5'10 and 3/4? So right at 200 pounds, which means what if he's 5'10, 190 pounds? Then where do you kind of place that and put that? So that was definitely a concern for me, just from what I look for in running backs and what I tend to lean to. His production is going against all of my principles.
No, I mean, you're right, because he's definitely a more kind of lean build. Even though he's listed at 5'11", like you got him listed at 5'11", 210. I don't believe he's 210. I definitely think he's closer to 200, maybe 195, somewhere in there. And but like you said, like watching him run hard, watching him run behind his pads, run with good physicality, and with his body type, you're like, this doesn't really fit, or it shouldn't fit, right? Because to your point, running back is the only other position I think is like that could be so prone to injury or the physicality of it is in the trenches. O-line, D-line. Running back is the most physically demanding position in football, which is crazy because they're like, oh, I don't want to pay you, but we want to run you into a brick wall, 17 times a game, right? You know what I mean? And everything. Yeah, no, running back is the most physically like taxing position. So I'm with you, Keith, on that. His body type, when you look at his frame, you would expect him to just be more of a pure finesse, elusive runner, making guys miss type of guy, but he does run behind his pads well, right? And we got to see if that translates to the NFL at a high rate, once he gets drafted and everything. But yeah, I think for me, Keith, it's you talk about the burst acceleration is definitely there. I worry about the top end speed. I couldn't really gauge it. You know what I mean? Like when you're playing against like Georgia State, yeah, you're blowing past guys. But their games, Keith, last year, and it goes into my second concern, was like the high volume, like he was a high volume runner. And my question is like, do you need the 20 plus touches and carries to really have the biggest of impacts? Because for example, against Arkansas, we know Arkansas's defense was not good. 17 carries, 44 yards, 2.6 yards per. Against Tulane the first time, 18 carries, 68 yards, 3.8 yards per, 2 rushing touchdowns. Right? Against LSU, 23 carries, 87 yards, 3.8 yards per. He's got multiple games under 3 yards a carry. Georgia, the first game, 12 for 31, 2.6. Oklahoma, 28 for 78 yards, 2.8 and everything, right? Like I want to get a gauge of it. Are you someone that I have to get the ball to at a high volume for you to really be able to make your impact felt on the game, right? Because typically, Keith, we've seen guys like Jeremiah Love, right? We saw that with Jeremiah Love last year. Jeremiah Love didn't need 20 touches. You gave him 10 to 15.
They should have gave him 20 touches.
Yeah, they should have given him 20, probably 30 sometimes. But like he gets to 15, and he's probably got 2 60-yard runs, and it's like, all right, let's go ahead and put you on ice, and let's bring Darian in, and whatever, we're gonna throw the ball a little bit, stuff like that, because he had that home run speed. I don't see that home run speed, and even so, I'll go, looking back at his long runs, his longest runs last year, 42, 33, 54, 59, and then he had a 73-yarder against Miami in the playoff game, right? So for the most part, he was held to about 30 yards, it's his longest runs, for the most part during the season, consistently. Well, he's got some games where he only had like 17 is his longest run. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So does that tie into then, if you have that concern and he's 5'11", 210 pounds, we'll go with his list of measurements, right?
Right.
Does that part lean itself towards the concern of his stature, right? The fact that I have to make you a high volume guy for you to be productive, but also now how does your stature hold up in that capacity?
Right.
Like does they kind of work together to bring upon the ultimate concern of what do I do with this?
No, 100%. It definitely, like when you combine the questionable top end speed with the frame, and it's like, man, you're at your best when you receive 20 plus touches in the run game,
because
it leads to those injury concerns.
Yeah, to my point is that obviously if you have a talented running back, right, like the Bijans, the Saquons, the Derrick Henrys, the Christian McCaffreys, you want to get the football in their hands 20 times, right? Like if they don't touch it 20 times, then you have an issue. But I guess that's what I'm asking is he a guy that you don't necessarily want to have that many carries because of the frame concern?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. Like, because 306 carries, just carries, guys, not touches, not including reception. Right. 306 carries is a lot of that's a lot of wear and tear on one season. Look and see real quick. He's got enough wear and tear on the tread on the tires, because he only had 23 carries in 2024 at Missouri, which I think probably led to him transferring to Ole Miss and joining Lane Kiffin, which is another concern. What do you look like without Lane? Right? That's the same thing we asked about Trinidad Chambliss. What do you look like without Lane Kiffin calling plays? Not saying that these are really talented players, but the scheme did help a lot of things. And Ole Miss fans will tell you, and Ole Miss fans watching on YouTube, or if you're just listening, you can tweet at us, you watch on YouTube, drop in the comment. I remember the conversation about Quinshawn when he left and went to Ohio State. And Ole Miss fans were like, Lane Kiffin makes running backs. Like, he makes running backs look better than they are. Now, Quinshawn went and had a successful rookie season up until he got hurt. And that was without a good offensive line and all, coaching situation, all that type of stuff. So we know Quinshawn still went second round. I'm not saying that Kewan Lacy isn't a really talented player because, again, we just gave him a lot of praise to start the show. He is a very talented player. But I do wonder as well, Keith, as we talk about the concerns with his size and health going into the NFL, like being able to handle that workload. But it's more so, how much of this was Lane? How much of this, how much did Lane create for the running back, for Kewan Lacy, for Trinidad and stuff like that? That's a big question that both of these young players have to answer early in the season this year. I think Pete Golding is the head coach now, the full-time head coach and everything. Yeah, you got to answer that question. Was it Lane? Because if you don't play well to start the season, those rumblings and mumbles will creep in to the crowd before everybody starts becoming an echo chamber and saying the same thing as the next person is like, well, yeah, I mean, he said like, yeah, it is Lane Kiffin, right? So I want to see him play to the same exact level, but the carries, I don't want him to have 306 carries again this year, Keith. I do not want this young man having because that's 612 carries in 2 years going into the NFL. I know some people pointed to Jonathan Taylor, but man, he had a heavy workload at Wisconsin. Jonathan Taylor was also 225, 230 pounds.
Different.
Yeah, different body type, man. Different body type. Completely different body type. So that's my concern. I don't want him to have that same type of workload to have to carry the offense as a runner. Kind of mix him in, bring somebody else in, give him a breather, and protect his body and for longevity standpoint.
Well, DP, let's do the big reveal, man. Let's go ahead and reveal the draft grade that we currently have on Kewan Lacy. We talked about the pros, right? The ultimate production in the SEC, right? But then we talked about the concerns, the size concerns. So what's the balance? What does that equal to as far as a draft grade for Ole Miss running back Kewan Lacy? We'll discuss that coming up next.
Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen of the day. Thank you for making the Locked On Podcast Network, number one sports podcast network in America. It's all because of you. Keith, let's talk about the grades. Explain the grade for Ole Miss star running back, heavy workload running back, Kewan Lacy. What grade did you give the young man, Keith?
Yeah, I came in with a middle of the second round grade. And I like I said, in the transition, right? The production, have to respect the production, being in the SEC, being a workhorse guy, being a motor for offense as it went through quarterback transitions, right? Respect that part. The size part, that part is going to have to kind of work its way out, right? And I think in order for him to continue to elevate DP, to me, there's going to have to be some athletic testing that's off the charts, right? If you're going to come in at 5'11", 205 or 5'10 and 3/4, 200 pounds, you got to be a 4.4 flat and under type of player, right? Because when you see that, then also, I think the other part, route running. Listen, the trend, right, and what put Jeremiah Love, I think, even more over the edge is that people believe that he can catch the football, right? Jameer Gibbs, not a very big guy. I think he was 5'10 and a half, 195 pounds, right? Something like that, right at 200. But he was ultra quick. And we said that this guy can play wide receiver full time. So I think when you look at him, Kewan Lacy, you have to say that, listen, the ability to catch the football out of the back, not just out of the backfield, but motioning out of the backfield and lining up at the slot wide receiver, different things like that, wheel routes, all of these different pivot routes, just different things, whip routes, all of those different things. You have to do them at an elevated level to overcome and to get people to understand, okay, you know what, running back offensive weapon. And I think that's the direction that he needs or should want to head into.
Yeah, Keith, I agree with you wholeheartedly on that. Like I said, the size concerns are definitely a thing. The workload, I mean, again, he handled it last year. We'll see how, I don't want him to have that same workload, but if he does get it, we'll see how his body holds up, with that same type of workload. Because, again, when you see 28 carries for 88 yards and you're averaging less than 4 yards per carry, it means that you're getting hit pretty early in the run, in the rep. You know what I mean? And, like, those hits accumulate, they add up. So definitely want to see him. And then, like I said, he's good at avoiding and evading guys. But when the defense is closing in and really closing the alleys, and they're giving you the ability to jump cut and be elusive and get out, you have to run through some tackles, or you have to run head on into some tackles. And I see how his body holds up for a second. I've watched, because he has a YouTube channel, and I was watching him work out. The young man puts in work. I'm not surprised he held up last year despite the frame, because he works really hard on his frame and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But again, like going into the NFL, like, hey, scouts and GMs and coaches are going to have that question. Like, can we give you that RB1 type of workload? Right. And it depends on the division you get drafted to, right? Like, what if you got,
I mean, and it's not just 1 year. So for college football, obviously, you need one big year, maybe two. But when teams are talking about taking you in the top 10, top 15, top 20, it's a 7-8 year thing, right? Where they want you for a decade, right? To be ultra productive.
100%. I think, as well, Keith, you think about like, hey, what if the Bengals want to move on from Chase Brown, who Bengals fans are? I love Chase Brown's game. Like, this dude can ball. You know what I mean? And what if they wanted to move on from him and they drafted the Kewan Lacy? It's like, that's a physical black and blue division. You know what I mean? That's a black and blue division throughout. Like, the Ravens are physical, the Browns are physical, and the Steelers are physical. That's a physical division. Or if you go to the NFC West, another physical division. Will you be able to hold up against that type of physicality game in and game out? Once you get into divisional play, it's a war every Sunday in the NFL in those type of divisions. So, Keith, I gave him a back in the round one grade. Like I said, I love the elusiveness, the shiftiness, the ability to make plays and create for himself. Love the vision, the patience. He's got a lot of the things I want in the RB1, but I do worry about the top end speed. I feel like, you talk about the acceleration. I feel like he hits the hole. Once he shifts gears, he accelerates quickly and well. But are you the vehicle that has a great accelerator, but your top end speed is like 120 on the dash? You know what I mean? 110 on the dash, and everybody else got 140, 160, 180, 190. Like, what do you have on the dash as a top end speed situation? That's my one of my main question marks for him, Keith. So when I was watching him, Keith, different body type, to me, almost similar run styles. I thought about Arian Foster and how Arian was such a smooth, patient, slow to, quick through. He was a strider. He could dead leg you, decel. He could accelerate. Now, again, different body type. For those who 6'1", 226. But also, I would say Arian Foster was a worse athlete. He ran almost a 4.7. He's a 4.68 in the 40. But again, I played at my pace. I make you match my pace, and you don't want to play that way. You know what I mean? As a defender, you don't want to play slow. I'm gonna play slow, and I'm gonna make you slow down your game, so then I can accelerate past you and make my cuts. But watching them in the vision and the ability to exchange gaps and lanes and just simple cuts, just hard plant, cross face, and then even the running style to me, like just kind of like you talking about the kind of, I think you mentioned like high cut, high hip as a runner and stuff like that. Arian was the same way. He was a strider and everything, but he was high cut. Now again, he was 6'1", so a little different, right? He's 6'1", you listed at 5'11". So, but that was kind of, I thought about that. Or if you just kind of more modern day, I could see him being a slower Breece Hall, because Breece ran 4.39 at the combine. You know what I mean? And Breece has got some elusiveness, a spin move to him, top end speed, but he's also a really good pass catcher out of the backfield too. So I could see him kind of fitting somewhere in the middle of that.
Yeah, no, those are both interesting comps, and I think he's probably going to be a difficult guy.
I think Breece was a second-round pick, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he wound up being a second-round pick. Yeah, he's just going to be a difficult guy to try to comp, because that combination of, like you said, not like being high hip, but you're not 6'1" or 6'2", right? Like being high hip at 5'11", 5'10" and 3/4, whatever it may be. That is going to be interesting to see and just kind of work through as we continue to discuss Kewan Lacy. But DP, that wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to end this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we like to say, man, y'all can talk to us because we like to talk back.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. On tomorrow's show, we're going to talk about the other guy who's going to be battling him for the RB1 title for the 2027 NFL Draft, Ahmad Hardy from Missouri. Make sure you subscribe and follow the Locked On NFL Draft podcast so you can get all the latest episodes. If you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get the Locked On NFL Draft podcast ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to lockedonnfldraft.supercast.com to join the club. For those of you on video, we send you to the first ever 24/7 National NBA YouTube channel. As always, come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.